Thank you very much. Bom dia, good morning. I am really very sorry because I cannot speak Brazilian Portuguese, but this time, forgive me. I hope next time I can do it. So, the other speakers, the previous speakers, have been addressing the issue of the synergies among the UN conventions at a broader level, at the institutional level. And as I am a forestry officer for the arid zones in FAO, I would like to approach or to address this issue mainly taking the case or the example, the concrete case of dryland forests. So in this presentation, a very quick reminder of why forests are important in drylands, what are the challenges, and how this importance also is reflected for an importance and relevance of a joint effort and work between the three conventions. And then I will be presenting some, let's say, some examples on the synergies among the three UN conventions, mainly based on results and recommendations from the earlier 13th session of the World Forestry Congress, where we have been organizing a side event directly addressing the issue of arid zone forests in the world. And then finally, I will provide a very brief example on the ground how we have been facilitating together with partner countries in sub-Saharan Africa and the different UN convention secretariats to develop what we called the guidelines on sustainable forest management in drylands of sub-Saharan Africa, tackling the challenges related to these three conventions. So my talk will not be only a talk from FAO Forestry Department point of view, but also resulting from this 13th World Forestry Congress, where we have been organizing this side event together with the UN CBD, the Global Mechanism of the UNCCD, different NGOs from WWF, IUCN, the African Union Commission, the Great Green Wall for the Sahara and Sahel Initiative from Senegal, the UNEP WCMC, and so on. Why dryland forests are important? They are important, of course, because they are supporting an important environmental array services, from biodiversity conservation, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, desertification prevention and also desertification control, conservation of natural resources and mainly of water resources. So this is actually those important issues that are actually also addressed by these three conventions. Dryland forests are not only important for biodiversity, for climate change, or for water conservation, they are also important in terms of socioeconomic aspects. They are providing income opportunities, but many times, these opportunities are taken just for granted. We are not investing a lot for sustaining the resources that are provided by these forests. Mainly, for example, fuel wood, pastures. Forests are great pastures and rangelands within these arid lands. Non-wood forest products, from plants to honey production to different other production. And another issue is also that forests are playing a role of protection against natural hazards that are a very important issue now that is coming up more and more, mainly under the scenarios of climate change, floods, fires, etc. And these, of course, importances are really the base, let's say, forests are the base also for food security, and sometimes we forget about that. There is not just agriculture. These forests are, of course, important, but they are also facing different challenges. And these challenges are actually mainly those challenges that are all the drivers that the different conventions are tackling, from population increase, poverty, social conflicts, lack of market opportunities, the no recognitions of the importance of the biodiversity of the dryland, the lack of appropriate policies, the governance and the lack of investments, and the lack of technical capacity, and moreover, also all these drivers are all exacerbated by climate change. So if we want really to protect and conserve the resources that forests are providing, we need to do it in an integrated way, preserving therefore the ecosystem goods and services, contributing to people's livelihoods in a positive way, and also help to adapt and mitigate climate change impacts. Mr. Zelaya has already presented the synergy between the CBD and also the CBD and the UN, not the UNCC, the climate change. Here I would like just to attract your attention on this CBD program of work that Mr. Zelaya has presented before on, from one side, on sub-humid, dryland and sub-humid lands from one side, and also forest biodiversity, mountain biodiversity where there are also forests, etc. So there is a real importance of working in collaboration in the implementation of this program of work. And here we had already the example of the UNCBD working together with the UNCCD for the implementation of the program of work on dryland forests, or dry and sub-humid lands as it is called by the CBD convention. I will not talk about the UNCCD, of course. There is the executive secretary of the UNCCD is here, and he will be talking more. I was just thinking that in order to develop these synergies, we have one convening force, which is climate change, and the Climate Change Convention, that can be like an embracing platform in order to bring together the different conventions, the different stakeholders interested by one or by the other issue in order to build up synergies. But what we are saying today is that in many countries, national action plans on desertification, strategies on biodiversity conservation and action plans, national forest programs, poverty alleviation programs, rural development programs, land use programs, and other different sectors are running in parallel, mostly running in parallel. And there is a real need to develop a platform, even at the national level, and maybe also at the regional level, across border, in order to develop integrated strategies and plans that can support the adaptation and mitigation to climate change, because it's a big challenge which is over one convention by itself or one stakeholder by itself. On the other hand, I wanted also to mention and to highlight already what has been mentioned before, is that the RED mechanism, or what we call now the RED, make sure that this money which supports sustainable development, climate change adaptation and mitigation, biodiversity conservation at the same time, and also combating desertification. So I'm just giving a very short bullet points of what happened during the side event that was organized in the World Forestry Congress, that have been also tackling the issue of importance of the UN conventions working together, but all the stakeholders at the national, local, and regional and international level, that they need to work together. And these are the priority, let's say, aspects that have been identified. From one side, there is an importance, it's important to recognize more and more and enhance the values of the drylands, and mainly dryland forests, and mainly their multifunctional role in terms of biodiversity conservation, sustainable development, climate change mitigation and adaptation, and combating desertification, for example. On the other hand, collaboration also need really to be built, not only at the international level. UN Secretariat of, let's say, the Secretariats of the Conventions cannot do much without the real support and engagement and catalyzation of this process on the ground, at the national level and at the regional level. And here, for example, I wanted just to cite two or three examples. For example, this is happening through this, what we call the FAO Silva Mediterranea platform, that is engaging 27 member countries from the Mediterranean, north, south, east, west, where all these countries are coming together with different partners from NGO and Mediterranean organizations that are working either for conservation, sustainable development, or management of forests in these areas, in order to develop an agenda and to push for its implementation and mobilize resources for it. And this is what we call the collaborative Mediterranean partnership, the collaborative partnership on Mediterranean forests, that now is really starting to be built and to be very dynamic. The other one is, for example, this initiative that has been developed by the different countries of sub-Saharan Africa around the Sahara, so the Sahara and Sahel countries, the Great Green Wall for the Sahara and Sahel initiative, that of course many have let's say in their mind that it is just planting trees, but it is more than that. The African Union and the countries are using this initiative from one side to climate change adaptation, fight poverty, and also develop sustainable development within these areas. So they are actually looking at developing sustainable land management schemes in the area. On the other side, the forestry also community and the research community have called for interventions that need to not be sectoral. So, for example, for the forestry sector, they need to work in and beyond the forest boundaries on protection, restoration, and management of forests, but within a landscape level, either at a watershed level or at any other landscape unit, embracing, let's say, a sustainable land management approach. There is a need also of upscaling programs, projects. There are many things, many good things going on the planet in drylands. We need just to build up the lessons and upscale these projects so that to make the difference, to see a real positive impact. And of course, the issue of governance, stakeholder participation was also highlighted, working on integrated policies and management also to adapt to climate change, not having a forest adaptation strategy, water adaptation strategy, agriculture adaptation strategy, but really developing an integrated strategy. And this is what is happening, for example, in Turkey with the support of, it's actually a UNDP program with the support of JEF, who are developing a national strategy for adaptation, bringing different dialogue with the different sectors, and so on. The other thing that I wanted to mention mainly is there is a need, if we want really synergies between the conventions, to develop a common monitoring system. Countries have many things to report for each convention. There is a need to develop a common monitoring system to support integration and also assessment of this issue. Just a very quick example of building up a joint effort for synergies between the conventions, but also within the different sectors, We have been, let's say, facilitating a process, but it was really a country-driven in sub-Saharan Africa in order to develop what we call the guidelines on sustainable forest management in drylands of sub-Saharan Africa. And of course, there were some drafts that have been prepared by experts, but then were followed by different workshops, multi-stakeholder workshops, and within the process, the UN CBD Secretariat, the UN CCD Secretariat have been also involved in this process in order to make sure that we are tackling, when we talk about sustainable forest management, the climate change issues, the biodiversity issues, and desertification issues, and also the other issues. And now, actually, this publication, these guidelines have been published in June 2010, so it's a very fresh, let's say, baby in English and French. Who wants, a copy? You can come to me. I have a suitcase with some examples. And just very quickly to let you know that these guidelines have been, as I said, looking at the different things, looking at the biodiversity, but also looking at adaptation and to climate change and mitigation, the productive and protective capacities even also to combat desertification, productive, of course, for sustainable development in those areas, tackling also the legal and policy issues, awareness raising, education, and also building up. We are not doing something new. We need to build up actually a very important partnership together with the countries to make sure that this publication will not, these guidelines will not be only a publication, but will be also implemented on the ground through programs, national programs, either with the government money, but also with multilateral funding or bilateral also funding. That's it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.